One of the key influencers that holds us back is quite simply the voice inside our own head. This isn't an easy fix either. Even after 17 years of experimenting, research, and teaching others about mindset, I still even catch myself in certain situations becoming attached, whether it's in business, parenting, or even social settings. What I've learned is that the feelings of anxiousness, hesitancy, and frustration, or even disappointment, are indicators that I've become attached to something, and that the practice of being able to distance myself or pull myself away from those poor performing emotions is paramount to the conversation or my relationship success. In this episode of Breaking Sales, we're sharing part 2 of my fascinating conversation with Dr. Rachel Turow, a psychologist and author who studies how our inner dialogue impacts our ability to connect with others and perform under pressure. Rachel and I explore how the instinct to judge, that primal need to categorize everything around us, shapes our performance and relationships. We dig into research-backed strategies for shifting from harsh self-criticism to productive self-talk. Whether you're struggling with difficult conversations, meeting with prospects, or navigating any high-stakes interaction, you'll learn practice techniques for letting go of judgment so that you can think more clearly about the conversations that you're having. If you're ready to discover how changing your inner dialogue can transform your outer results, stay tuned. Let's get started. We haven't really talked about this, and I don't know what your commentary might be and all that. But one of the things, as you know, that we really try to help people do, and I don't even know if it fits into any of this discussion, and I have to work on it all the time, especially with my kids, is this idea of detachment, or maybe compartmentalization could be another way to describe it, where, right, we have such a habit as human beings to label and judge everything we hear, everything that we see, and it tends to come down to good or bad. And, we can get into the primal evolutionary psychology of that, but at the end of the day, it comes down to, is this going to harm me? Is this going to help me? Is this going to be good? Is this going to be bad? And what we try to do is help people pull back from that a little bit as much as they can without labeling something good or without labeling something bad. Because, right, detachment just seems to cloud us. And so I don't know if there's things within your work or within the research that you've done and the community and all that on how to try to be more objective within ourselves.
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. So I'm
long-winded.
kind of thinking about. No, it's good. I'm thinking about, I'm familiar with kind of the psychology perspectives and their jargon, but also the world of meditation and mindfulness, and those do overlap because there's a lot of great scientific literature on mindfulness, loving kindness, meditation. So the word that's often used to describe what I think you're getting at is non-identification. So when a feeling comes, it's really easy to have it sort of overtake us. If we're feeling depressed or anxious, we think, I am depressed, I am anxious. Not all languages do this, but English does it, right?
I am depressed.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated.
Like, this is me. This is who I am. And therefore that's bad because I don't want to be like this. Instead of if we have that non-identification, then you could say, there's some anxiety. Where does the anxiety show up? What does it feel like? And that's a way of not becoming so identified. That's the idea, the word I think that I would use rather than attached. So you don't feel like the feeling is you. You're sometimes people say you're the sky and the feeling or the thoughts or the weather. So you can notice them, they're part of things, but they're not the whole story. You're bigger than that. It's just something that's going on. And so with parenting or other things that seem just so intense in the moment, I like the idea of just broadening, just trying to have a zooming out sort of. And or just allowing it all to be there. Like, okay, so right now my kid is crying and begging to be homeschooled. Like, that's really happening, and the suffering is here. This person is very upset and my heart is breaking for them. But you kind of know, based on your experience being a parent, that next week things might feel different. You're not diminishing, but you're just kind of making a little bit more room, not to kind of deny or want them to suppress. Or you're not suppressing, you're just saying this is all here, and there's also next week, there's also last week when they were really happy at school.
And by the way, with teenagers and young adults, it's still the same. It can fluctuate from week to week.
And it's rough. It's so rough. And I mean, luckily, as somewhat older adults, we know that our moods can pass, but they don't know that yet. And I mean, that's terrifying. We were there too. So, I mean, it's just the benefit of experience. And I think, if you do meditate, it does allow you to sit with your feelings and to do that with things that are not so highly charged. So if you are kind of sitting and noticing your bodily sensations and you have a little headache, it's a great opportunity to say, okay, this is there. What does it feel like, in this non-judgmental way? And I only hope, and there's some good evidence, that that kind of practice then does positively influence your relationships. Because I think sometimes people worry that compassion is this like finite resource, that if you're nice to yourself, then,
Right.
you won't be as focused on other people, but that's a scarcity kind of view, right? So,
Yes.
but instead, the research shows that, for health professionals who practice mindfulness and self-compassion, they're rated as more effective by their patients and colleagues.
So the more effective would mean better listener,
Doing better work.
Better listeners, like, right? Because I don't know if it's okay to bring this up, but you had a great example earlier about someone who was, in essence, selling you.
That's right. I've had a few encounters since I've kind of learned more about your perspectives, Dan. I'm really interested in noticing those moments where, as a parent, I had people kind of selling different products to me. And, whether that was orthodontics or martial arts or math tutoring, and I'm kind of noticing now how they're doing it and noticing what feels effective. And so I've had these different situations where the orthodontists seem to feel very abundant, not really concerned about whether or not we bought the product, but on the flip side, really not very interested in my kids' experience or feelings. And that was really disconcerting.
So, I mean, as you and I talked, right, they were abundant because they weren't pushing, and they were also detached, but it also came off a little bit like irreverence, right?
Yeah, really cold.
And then added to the fact that there was no benevolence, right? They didn't seek to understand your thought process, opinion, and where it came from and all that. It was just like, all right, you do or you don't, right?
Exactly. It seemed really just uncaring and right, not really a safe environment. And so just interesting to think how these different ways of being with yourself translate. And, one thing that resonates for my students is there's research showing that self-compassion, being kinder towards yourself instead of self-critical, is associated with more motivation and also less procrastination. So I think we kind of think of it as this thing where if I'm nice to myself, then I'm just going to be on the couch. I won't get those emails out. I won't care about being productive. I won't care about being effective. So that's where I really like that we have this great scientific literature showing that actually that self-encouragement is associated with higher levels of success.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up a really good topic there, and I touched on it earlier. I think one of the hardest things is there's two very difficult things in business development / sales. Okay. We actually teach, as you know, for people not to sell, but it's still within the realm. The two things are the self-talk that people have behind what we call prospecting, which is them reaching out to try to connect with new possible clients. There's a lot of negative self-talk that goes into that leads to a lot of procrastination, a lot of putting off the effort, not putting themselves out there. And what happens is week after week, it compounds on people. right? Because they know they're not doing it. They know they need to be doing it. But instead of embracing the action and that short-term discomfort, they continue to put it off, which adds more and more weight to it. And then the other area is asking really good, meaningful questions like you and I were talking about, where you just slow down and you really seek to understand the experience or the opinion or the perception of the other individual. But you're willing to ask those questions. Those two areas are, ironically, the most difficult areas for sales professionals. Now, that doesn't mean some aren't really good at it, but majority really struggle with both.
That's so interesting. And yeah, it makes me reflect about this other experience that I had recently at the math tutoring center, where we were not expected to really engage. We thought we would just get the assessment, get out, and never see them again. But the person who was interacting with my kid was so relaxed, but also interested in my kid as a whole person. Like, okay, let's not just talk about math. What else is going on? What do you actually like to do? And I could see how that information could then be taken and then applied back to math, in a, relatively sneaky but legit kind of way. But it made us feel very at ease. There wasn't a rush. There was this benevolent, wish to kind of understand the person as a whole person beyond just, I have this one product and that's what I'm focused on. They were focused on us. And that was so reassuring that it wound up being a really successful interaction. And now we're going to go to that math center every week and we bought the product. So, I'm just kind of interested in thinking of that person's process of like having their practiced standard way that they've trained themselves, that person, as, okay, I'm going to be interested in this person in front of me as a whole person before I even talk about my product.
I love that. And that's exactly what we're trying to help our clients do, is that just slow down and, to your point, take a legitimate interest in the other person. What's on their mind? How do they view whatever it might be? What has their experience been? Don't worry about your expertise. Don't worry about what you have to say, right? And you had a great example with that math tutor. Your daughter was like, I don't want to do this. I don't have any plans on doing this.
Yeah,
and then next
exactly.
thing you know, she's like, hey, I'm doing this.
That's right. It was really effective.
So going back to my original question, and I don't know if there's anything different that you would share, and if there's not, that's fine. But those two areas are the areas I would love to see our clients strengthen, right? The self-talk about putting themselves out there to meet new people because they know the rejection is there waiting, but they also tend to forget there's also those who will accept the invite, right?
Yeah, that's right.
What would you recommend to them? And it may be just a summary of what some of the things we've already discussed.
Right, Dan. So I think it's key to pick a specific strategy. If you would like to improve your self-talk, pick a method. So that could be the cognitive reappraisal, the spot the success. Maybe you're going to try that mindfulness meditation, allowing, of course, 3 to 8 weeks before you evaluate if there's change, because it takes a while. Loving kindness meditation. Again, this is a practice, just like going to the gym. You wouldn't necessarily expect that one workout is going to give you all the results, but it's that continuity. So those might be really good ways to start. And that there are also a couple of other methods, just doing the thing. So trying to evaluate it less. So during that prospecting is just getting those emails out there, judging less on the return and more on the process of, hey, I sent 10 good emails today. I'm proud of myself for doing that. It is done. I did do it. They were sent. I confirmed it. Excellent. Regardless, obviously we hope for good returns, but there's something of value in that effort that I put out there. And I'm going to reinforce that was valuable. There's also in psychology, some benefits from exposure, right? The more you do it, the easier it gets.
Right, right. I mean, if you can work through that original discomfort, right? Eventually the discomfort, I don't want to say will, but may go away. Or if it doesn't go away, it's reduced.
Exactly. And sometimes people worry they're going to get too full of themselves. I mean, you're not going to, I don't think anybody's going to be like, now I have inflated self esteem because I reinforced myself for emailing today. It doesn't work like that. For most people, they're so self critical that if they practice being kinder and more encouraging, it's not going to result in some, ego nightmare.
And, so, and then when was the best time to do some of these things, right? So, we talked a little bit about spot the success, but when's the best time for that? And then when's the best time for some of these other things? Is it right before that risky action?
I wouldn't wait until that moment because these are practices that build over time. I think it's really tough to start a new mental practice if you're feeling a lot of stress and strain. I mean, for some people, that's like the impetus they need. But what you're wanting is to develop stronger mental muscles so that when you are in those high pressure situations, it's not so hard for you because you're already practiced those skills. And that's why it's so nice, instead of just hoping for positive self-talk, you already know, oh, these phrases are my friends, my mental friends that kind of help me calm down. I'm used to saying them, so I can say them now. You already know what you're going to do ahead of time. Some people too, if they get into a room and they're feeling anxious, there's a practice too where you notice 3 new things about the room to kind of get your mind off of that, reflect that, nervousness about what people might be thinking. Another one I like is to feel your feet. Tune into the sensations in your feet because a lot of our stress is in our head and our chest. So our feet are usually a little bit more neutral. So if you can kind of have a plan in place, like if I feel nervous, I already know that I'm going to do these things. Then it's not like you're just like grasping at straws when you're in that situation.
I've been wiggling my feet now for about 30 seconds.
Anytime. And nobody knows you're doing it.
Nope.
Your feet are this great resource. So I would say that I don't think it matters so much, what time of day. Some people do like to meditate first thing in the morning if you're a meditation kind of person. With Spot Success, I kind of think the opposite, that it's a little bit hard first thing in the morning to think of 10 successes. You might need to wait an hour or two to kind of rack them up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. At night maybe, or after the day is over. Is that okay?
I love thinking about them at night. That's really nice. If you wait too long and you're in bed, then you probably aren't going to be writing them down. And some people do find benefit from that. But I think it's really lovely to experiment, to give one of these specific techniques a really good shot for a couple weeks or more and say, hey, I really want to be nice to myself. I accept it's not going to be happening automatically, that I've got to put some minutes in, relatively consistently, and then I can observe if there's a result.
Yeah, I don't want to be repetitive, but I love what you
all about repetition, Dan.
I love what you were talking about on the meditation, because it's so true. We judge ourselves. We call ourselves a knucklehead. Hey, come on, come back. It's not that hard. You can't even get through 3 minutes. What's wrong with you, right? We start judging ourselves, but I never really thought about it. Every time that we can bring ourselves back to the breath and just get back into it, yeah, we're strengthening that ability not to judge, right? We're strengthening that ability to not criticize ourselves and just keep moving, right?
Yeah. And it's so funny about meditation. I think so many of us, especially when we first begin, think that there's some gold star for staying focused,
Yeah,
that you're
right.
failing if you lose focus. So when I teach mindfulness skills, I really like to emphasize, hey, what if you thought about it a different way? What if your task isn't to stay focused, but to return your focus as quickly and non-judgmentally as possible over and over again, 100 or 1,000 times?
That's really good, because I'm what you said. I will just get frustrated and say, all right, come on, man, let's go, knucklehead, keep your focus. But I like that versus saying, okay, we lost focus. Let's just get it back. Let's see if we can just get that process back. Let's get a few more breaths in.
Yeah, there's your workout. I can feel that self-talk strengthening as you speak.
Anything else that you'd like to share or anything?
I think that I'd just like to put out some encouragement that I really do get that these processes take some time. They're not always easy, especially at first, but the way you talk to yourself can change. And maybe you experiment with a few different methods, and that's okay. Maybe the first way just isn't your favorite, but it's okay for it to be a little bit hard. And it might help to think about this as a tough mental workout. It's going to be a challenging workout, but it's a workout that's well tested, where a lot of people report results from loving kindness meditation, from spot the success, from other types of working with your own mind.
Yeah, that cognitive reappraisal for me, I like that. That was good because there's so many areas I could see applying that. Spot the success I love because it reminds me a lot of abundance and gratitude in a way. I mean, I know it's not exactly the same, but I like the mentality where it's all about there's no such thing as something too small. Acknowledge it, right?
Exactly. Because, right, every connection you make, every time you speak with somebody, it's an opportunity and it does matter.
Is there anything you'd like to share with the audience about how they can get in touch with you, how they can buy your books, how they can get to know you better?
I have a website. It's rachelturow.com. And my books are available on Amazon, through Penguin Random House, and through other booksellers. So I also love to hear from people. If you do have comments or questions, you can reach out.
And then out of curiosity, could you share with the audience, how many books have you written on the topic?
I have written 2 books, Mindfulness Skills for Trauma and PTSD, and The Self-Talk Workout. I also have a lot of articles and various podcasts.
Yeah. So Rachel, it's been fantastic having you on. As you know, we're not Stuart what's his name? Stuart Smalley from the SNL skits from the 80s, right? And that's quite often when we think about self-talk, we think about him staring in the mirror, telling himself he's good enough and people like him, right?
That's
No,
right.
this is not like that. All the research is behind this. I'm a big believer in it. We teach our clients it. So I think it's how people change the life around them. And it starts with their small talk. People change the life around them because it starts with their self-talk.
That's right. The way you treat yourself matters. And there's so many different moments. And that means that we can pick just a few moments for some intentional practice and get meaningful results.
Yeah. Awesome. Consider this. What if instead of immediately labeling a prospect's response as good or bad, you could stay fully present in the conversation? That voice in your head may tell you that this is impossible, that you need to judge, to react, to protect yourself. But as we've explored today, that primal mindset is actually quite often working against us. If you find yourself struggling with mindset, try one small, simple experiment this week. The next time you're in a conversation and you feel hesitant or anxious or disappointed, you find yourself making judgments, just pause, take a breath. Notice that the instinct to judge and see if you can let it pass. Then focus purely on understanding the person in front of you. Seek to understand their perspective, even if you don't agree with it. Remember, detaching from our outcomes around us each and every day isn't about being cold or uncaring. It's about creating mental space to strengthen ourselves and better connect with others. Until next time, if you'd like to learn more and get a hold of Rachel, you can reach out and connect with her at rachelturow.com or on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, you can follow us on your preferred streaming platform. And if you choose, leave a review. You have many options to listen to. We appreciate the time that you spend with us, and we would value your feedback on Apple Podcasts.